just wasn't comfortable writing the check for the aqua dam because in the back of my mind, I just kept thinking that's going to bust. That's going to bust, and then we're going to be in about the same situation or worse. All right, so we've been working through this problem at Willow Creek. There's a couple pieces of this problem that really matter when it comes down to water mitigation at Willow Creek. I'll try to explain what happened and what we've learned. Number one, the reason we bought Willow Creek is this big, gorgeous sliding rock. I thought it was a unique enough feature, and the house is sitting 50 feet from these ponds. So this pond, the big beautiful sliding rock, it doesn't do it justice nearly in pictures. In person, it's really spectacular looking, and it's really unique, and it's kind of a perfect wedding venue, so we were really happy to buy it, right? And it's really gorgeous. Now if you look from the other end of those ponds, you can see pretty clearly that when we bought the property, the rock wall wasn't very tall. It was 1 to 3 stones tall, which turns out was not nearly enough. Now, we didn't realize that at the time. Hurricane Helene was a once in 100-year occurrence, but what Hurricane Helene did to this property, cool sliding rock, it had a big man-made island kind of right here. It was this big V-shaped island. There was a covered bridge up here, and then there was the retaining wall. What you'll see is that the old retaining wall just had a little bit of a bulge here, right? If the water came fast, it could really hit this spot and come at the house. And that's actually what it did. The host Hurricane Helene aftermath looked like this. And you can see the real changes were, number one, the water apparently got going fast enough this way that it ate the entire retaining wall all the way back into the bank, and jumped the bank and flooded the main floor of the house and destroyed the entire retaining wall. But beyond that, it destroyed that man-made island that was sitting out here and washed it into the top pond. And the covered bridge that used to be sitting there, it also washed it into the top pond, plus a bunch of crap. And so we had to come in here and rebuild all of these retaining walls. And in the process of building all these retaining walls, we realized, hey, we have to raise these walls. So now the walls used to sit 1 to 3 feet off the water. Now they sit 4.5 feet off the water, right? And where you can see right here, this bowl really was the problem. We kind of connected here and brought it straight out and tried to push the water as much as we can. Now, there's a new covered bridge up top, and down bottom, we're doing some things that, we can do to mitigate water, and we're watching it very, very, very closely. But beyond all of that work, beyond $150,000 of retaining wall reconstruction and cleaning and trying with water mitigation, working with landscape architects and hydrologists, it's still sitting at the bottom of a river, right? It's still going to have water coming off that rock at speeds. And so I've been doing research on what are my options really when it comes to stopping major water events. This was actually taken the day of Hurricane Helene. I had actually just gotten into this pond and pulled this set of slats and the other set of slats that was below and almost died pulling that one. Bad idea, very dangerous. But I had just pulled, that's the last picture of that covered bridge because the water was going to get high enough to take it down into the ponds. Right, that's the last picture of all this stuff together because overnight Helene hit and just destroyed everything, and I mean everything. So with that being the case, I've been researching different ways to stop water. My first thought was something like this. It's called an aqua dam, and it's just a big bladder, a big garden hose that can go around a property. Now the nice thing about Willow Creek is it is horizontal. It is horizontal to the river, or parallel to the river, right? The truth is the river comes kind of this way, and Willow Creek sits parallel to the river. And so that's really good. What I thought is, hey, if we just put a big aqua dam here, it would just keep the stuff in the river. However, and this is the big however, as I've done my research, the thing that really screwed the old retaining wall was rocks and logs coming down from off the mountains, right? That's really what killed it. Rocks and logs came down with enough speed that they tore the retaining wall apart. And so with that being the case, an aqua dam probably would just get punctured by the first sharp rock that comes our way. Now, an aqua dam the size that we need is about 150, 175 feet, and I priced those out, and they were roughly $7,000-8,000 plus delivery. And I just couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger, right? Because I think there's just a really good chance if we ever have another Hurricane Helene, it's going to puncture it, and we're going to end up with something that costs $8,000 that doesn't do a lot of good. Aqua dams seem to be most useful for slow rising floodwaters, not torrential rivers that are carrying rocks and boulders and tree trunks. So I decided not to do that. Now, beyond that, I did a bunch more research, and we had a quote come in from a company called Garrison Flood for this type of thing, like a mayhem defense product. And it's interesting because this type of product is modular, right? It just comes in these big printed pieces. You put down some sandbags. The water eventually holds them down. It comes in pieces. It's easy to set up. It's easy to take apart. However, and as I researched, the research seems to say that they're going to do the best on concrete with rising floodwaters, not at the bottom of a river taking rocks and logs to the face, which is what we've got. So I just don't see a good option. The best option I can find is something like this, which they call a log stop, right? A log stop, you actually put stanchions in the ground, and you can drop steel into them, and then you can put aluminum slats in. Now, a log stop, you could actually have it be pretty not visible. You could have all of the slats and all of the stanchions stored, and you could just auger into the ground and put your settings there. And then if you had major water, you drop your posts into those settings. You cap them when they're not there, and then you just drop steel posts in and then aluminum on top of that. And now you've got something that's actually built to stop a log. That's probably where we're going to end up. So what we've done is, number one, we've spent $44,000 just reconstructing the walls. The retaining walls are 4.5 feet high. But number two, we're going to come back a little bit in what is now black mulch, right? And we'll just auger into the ground and set up a log stop system along the front of the house. Because I really do think if we can keep water going this way and not coming at the house for 100 feet, 150 feet, then we'll never have a problem. And I think the new wall is built about 1 million times better than the old wall was built. So I really think that all we need now, we've got a much better retaining wall. We've had some summer storms, some really heavy summer storms recently, and the wall has been great. We also graded away over here, so the water has a path of least resistance. With that all being said, I do think we need a log stop on the property running parallel to the river. I've been doing research for that and trying to figure it out. I had a bid for both an aqua dam, $8,000 plus shipping. Another, they said $7,000 to $8,000, sounded insane. And then for the mobile pieces, that was $17,000 with the bid I got for that. And as I looked at both, I just said, hey, neither one of these is going to stop a boulder. Neither one of these is going to stop a tree trunk. And that's actually the problem here. If we get to high flood stages and stuff is coming off the mountains, boulders and tree trunks, where do you think all this stuff came from? It came off the mountain upstream somewhere and went right into the retaining wall. So that's the solution. You always get to learn something new when you're an entrepreneur. And this solution is, how do we go one step farther and protect a $3.5 million asset that we've just rebuilt, a log stop system. So that's where we are with that. Just thinking through the problems, and I just wasn't comfortable writing the check for the aqua dam because in the back of my mind, I just kept thinking that's going to bust. That's going to bust, and then we're going to be in about the same situation or worse. So we needed something that's going to stop a log, stop a rock, especially a jagged rock or a jagged log, like a broken log at speed. That's going to pop that.
I hadn't even thought about the jagged things coming down, breaking the aqua dam, which you have filled with more water.
More water.
That more water is then going to flood your property even more. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
no. That is a huge problem.
Yeah, no, I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger just because I kept thinking like, okay, is this a good spend of money? Is this a bad spend of money? Because as you can see where it works really, really well. But that is rising floodwaters. That's like the water just came up slowly or quickly to the house, right? It's not this is sitting on a river and crap is coming off the mountain at you, which I just don't think this is built for. This is like, hey, I live in the low country and I need, as the water comes up, I need it to, be kept out. I think it's incredible for what it does, but the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this is not the correct thing. And so then I went and I researched these portable ones. And I just thought, dude, if a big rock or a big tree trunk hits that, it is over. Like, it's not built for that. It's built for setting up in a parking lot and water rising against it, but not like big things coming at it. And so, yeah, at the end of the day, I ended up with, we're going to need a log stop, which is, this type of situation. Yeah, a log stop is where we're going to end up. So now I have to price out a log stop and figure out if there's a way to do it in a cost-effective way. It doesn't look cost-effective. It looks expensive as all hell. I thought of doing it just with like 2x4s, right? But I wonder if 2x4s and metal and aluminum are similar priced. So I've got to price out a log stop. That was one of the tickets that drew me to this today. I don't know. So yeah, we're pricing out a log stop now. But you think we can both agree these things aren't going to work. There's too much big debris, and I just don't see these being a solution. This could be a solution. You just set up a mesh dam that fills with water and catches stuff. I think a big rock would still break that to pieces. Yeah, anyways, log stop. But last time we've had some really heavy rains last week. I went out to the property every day. We had blinding rains last week. And my biggest problem with this solution is it was a stinking $17,000 bid. Maybe that would have been something I would have considered, and we just, when the next Hurricane Helene hits, we just know it's not going to work. Yeah, it's probably a matter of getting a log stop and just moving the stuff down with a tractor when the day comes that we got to set something serious up. Well, that is thinking through a problem, trying to figure out what our options are, and our options right now are not inexpensive. That says $3 for 20 centimeters, so it's a foot and a half. So like $25 a foot, and I've got 100 feet, $2,500 to $25,000. I don't know where the decimal is. I'll look at that once I have a calculator. I don't know. We'll have to see that. That's how we're thinking through the problems that are still there. We have insurance this time, and we're still working with insurance and FEMA from last time. And so I'm just not wanting, the insurance on that property is FEMA, and I'm just not wanting to put them to the test because it's been such a miserable experience working with them since Helene. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just don't want to put that to the test. We'll see how much a log stop costs for 100 feet. Well, that is that piece of the equation, and that's thinking through problems that we're running into and trying to figure out, hey, how do we do this thing called entrepreneurship? If you've made it this far, I appreciate it. It lets YouTube know that you like what we're putting out and that you'd like to follow along. If you want to let YouTube know that even more, like, subscribe, share with a friend. If you want to see anything else that we've produced in the past, our entrepreneurial journey starting 30 companies, managing $300 million in wealth over 10 years, all the free advice I can give, feel free to like, follow along, share this with a friend. If you'd just like to see something that my team thinks is the best thing that would most interest you, click right here. Thanks for following along.